Fortunately, it happened well after we got home. So hopefully most people were home. We watched the radar all day, and like we kept seeing, you know, and we were like, but then we'd watch the radar and it was like, yeah, no, it's not. So it did. And then it stayed for several, like we got a couple of inches of rain in a couple hours last night, which was good because we really needed it. My ivy should be happy. My aloes probably are drowning, but you know, because at one point I looked out my front door and one of my aloes was sitting in about this much water. So it has never come in the house, but it has come to the door. Just, it's the way the front walk is built. It's not the best design. So, all right. Well, but you're not here to listen to me talk about my flooding front walk or the rain we got last night. What you are here for is Living the Science of Mind. We are getting really close to the end, which is okay because I picked the next book. We're going to do Your Spiritual Power, which is a collection of a bunch of Ernest Holmes little books. And simply because it's in the room. And it's a nice, thick book. So hopefully it'll take us a little bit to get through. So, all right. So that is, so we're going to do the housekeeping. I need to stop using the word so because I don't do it anymore. I can. I was never very good at sewing. So, all right. There I go again. Vocal fry. Yay. The housekeeping is me reminding you that we are Creative Life Spiritual Center. The website is creativelife.org. The email, constant contact email, info@creativelife.org. You get one email a week and it tells you what's going on for the week and the month. The hot links are hot, meaning if it says click here now, it'll take you right to the information or the person that can help you get it. And the last part about that is simply that it is a blind CC, which means nobody will see your email and nobody will get your email from us. So you want to end up on anybody else's email list. And it's a real person doing it. He just really doesn't have time to do more than one a week, unless, of course, something happens, because I will remind you, we live in hurricane country. All right, I think that's everything. And then social media. I only mentioned the social media because we don't monetize the social media. We don't want to deal with the ads any more than you do. So what we ask you to do instead is to like, subscribe, follow based on which platform you're dealing with, and then engage with the individual posts, react, comment, share. When you do that, it bumps us in the algorithms. We think we have good tools to share. We hope you agree. So we are the Creative Life Spiritual Center or Creative Life Spark, and I am the Running Rev Ryan across the social medias that I am on. So that should be that. So Living the Science of Mind is a collection of essays that were pulled from the at-home course that used to be in the back of the Science of Mind magazine. They have bound it into a collection of books. It took about 6 books. If you're interested in that, go to the Science of Mind Archives website. There are a whole bunch of books that you can get from the archive, but you want to use their Amazon link, because when you use their Amazon link, it gets you the archives get some of the money. That's what I'm trying to say. Wow. English, right? I cannot believe it's Thursday. I don't know where this week's gone. It's just been busy. So, yeah, okay. My pet theory, though, is that these articles were answers to questions. This is an FAQ, frequently asked questions. I think people came to the lectures, I think people read the textbook, and I think they had questions. And so what he did was he would answer them. And this ended up being what it is. They just pulled a bunch of essays together and said, here, frequently asked questions. If you Google this, it says it's Ernest Holmes' commentary on his seminal work. Yeah, it's an FAQ, frequently asked questions. And we are in the little section, because they don't divide it up into sections, but they do group them together. And so we are currently in the fear section. Because what was the title yesterday? Because like we did the fruit of good and evil. Oh yeah, that's what it was. The contagion of fear. And today we're doing fear and punishment. So let's get on with it. Let's see what Ernest Holmes has to say about fear and punishment. We all know what fear can do, how it can shrivel up hope and dampen the ardor of living, and finally, how it can close up the avenues of self-expression. When carried to an extreme, it leaves one a wreck, physically and mentally. And we have observed what faith can do. We have seen people so filled with fear that nothing in life seemed worthwhile to them, and we have seen them learn to have faith in life and have watched the transformation that has taken place in their lives. The psychologist might say that such a person has a phobia, an inferiority complex, which means that they feel unable to cope with life. Or the psychiatrist might say that they are neurotic. But we must look at them and say, here is a spiritually complete person who is doing nothing that they have not been trained to do. They have had the intelligence and the emotional capacity. No, they have had the intelligence and the emotional capacity to learn these lessons of fear and to learn them well. If it is possible for us to learn to be afraid, we can reverse the process and learn to have faith. In the study of mental suggestion, it has been discovered that if a mother fears that their child's food will not digest, it will affect the child's digestive process. If she is afraid that he will not sleep well at night, his sleep will be disturbed. If he is surrounded with thoughts of irritation and emotions of anger, they will all register in him. Times without number, he has listened to such warning as keep away from that dog, he may bite, or don't get too close to the edge, you may fall, or be sure to wash your hands, there are germs on them. The signposts on the road to fear are too numerous to mention, but each leaves its imprint upon the growing mind and the plastic memory of the child. It is little wonder that the child arrives at maturity in a state of perpetual fear. They have learned that it is in their home, in their school, and unfortunately in their religious instruction. We sometimes wonder whether God is not feared more than God is loved and trusted. Yeah. A whole lot of religions are based on fear. They definitely use fear to keep their flocks in line. Yep. Gio just came in. So, it is unfortunate that the idea of a future state of punishment should have been so emphasized in our religious training. For out of it have come the most morbid fears the human mind has ever entertained. How can we believe that a good God, a God of love as well as wisdom, would seek to destroy its own creation? An excellent question. And that was one, and honestly, that was one I had. How could God create us and then send us to hell? It's like, it didn't track. It didn't make sense. I never bought in. This does not mean that we are not responsible for our acts. We cannot escape the logical result of our thoughts and acts. The punishment for any act flows out of the act itself. Jesus said, "Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven." Okay? This is the law of cause and effect. It's like, if you do something stupid, well, you're going to reap the consequences of that. So, but if you do something good, you'll reap the consequences of that. In this masterful statement, we find a teaching of justice, not just retribution. The moment we forgive, we are forgiven. God is the eternal forgiver. You will remember that in Jesus' parable of the laborers, some came early in the morning to work in the vineyard, some at noon, some in the afternoon, and some did not come until the 11th hour. But the Lord of the vineyard gave them all equal pay. This parable portrays a message of great significance. What Jesus was really saying is this: no matter what happened during the day, no matter how wrong we might have been in our previous experience, when the time comes that we actually do enter into the vineyard, which means life as we live it, then the Lord of the vineyard, who represents God, receives us. There is no condemnation, no judgment. We are not sent to eternal perdition or future punishment. Jesus taught that there was no sin but a mistake and no punishment but a consequence. One of the I've seen sin described as an anachronism, self-inflicted nonsense. Again, we find Jesus forgiving the thief who was crucified with him and saying, "Today shalt thou be with me in paradise." He told people that when they go into the temple to pray, forgiveness should be their first act. Can we ignore that this forgiveness means forgiving ourselves, just as certainly as it means forgiving everyone else? Jesus clearly taught that God is the great giver, and because God is the great giver, God is also the great forgiver. I think that's one of the things we definitely need to, remember is that when we're doing forgiveness work, the first person we generally need to forgive is ourselves. And then we move on. All right. Here is another illustration. Suppose a room has been in darkness for years and we bring in a light. What becomes of the darkness? It just is not there. It would make no difference how long the room had been dark. When the light appears, the darkness disappears. Perhaps our ideas of being good and doing good have been based on the expectation of reward or the fear of punishment instead of common sense. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's like we don't do things just to do things. We do things expecting something from them. That's just my interpretation, though. Okay, goodness should be natural and spontaneous. Goodness is normal, evil is abnormal. We should live by faith and not by fear. Because we have had so many fears, and because we have built up such an unconscious sense of guilt, we seek a release from the emotional tension of this guilt feeling by projecting the thought that we need to be punished for our mistakes. This, no doubt, is the origin of the belief in hell. Hi, baby. Dante has appeared. Many believe that the Bible teaches that there is a literal hell. Nothing could be further from the truth. What the Bible teaches is the law of cause and effect. It teaches it over and over again in many different places and in many different ways. The Bible teaches that all unkind and negative reactions must be purged from the mind. This is where we get the idea of purgatory. It means purging the mind. Oh, I did not know that. I guess I've never really thought about it. Okay. It tells us that the pain of this mental purging can be likened to the fires of Gehenna, which was a place outside the city of Jerusalem where they burned the garbage. This teaching we can accept because it is logical. If our minds are filled with hatred towards others, we really hate ourselves. If we lack confidence in life, it is because we first lack confidence in the self. And if we are afraid of God and of the future, it is because we are not acquainted with love and confidence. Unfortunately, or unfortunate as it may be, there is no question but that one of the great fundamental fears of the whole human race is the belief in hell and in future punishment. Yep. And probably more sorrow, human suffering, and morbidity have come from this one belief than all others combined. You know what? So I love Terry Pratchett. He's an English author. And what I love about, he writes satire, but he writes fantasy satire. So he's like, all of his books are criticizing something that is just messy about, human nature, human culture, all of that. And he has this line, and I forget what book it is, about the gods of Discworld. How people will, people get what they expect after they die. And so that they won't go to hell if they don't know about hell, which is why it's important to shoot missionaries on sight. Okay? I did say it was a satire. He doesn't literally mean that. But there are a whole lot of cultures who had never heard of hell until the Christian missionaries got there and taught them about it. I have my own issues with missionaries. If you want to go and do good work in, you want to dig a well, you want to build a school, you want to build a hospital, go do that. Don't force people to convert to your religion to do good works for them. Go do the good work, and then when they're curious about your religion, teach them. Not the other way around. Okay, sorry. I digress. Okay. It is time for us to clarify the situation and realize that the God of love cannot hate, and the God of life cannot destroy. The God of good cannot desire evil. It is on this basis that we should create a great hope and faith. We should be willing to admit that we are punished by our mistakes, and in common sense recognize that while we continue our mistakes, we must of necessity continue to suffer, but always with certainty in mind that when light comes, darkness disappears. When forgiveness comes to our own mind, we are forgiven. When we are willing to give, we shall receive. When we learn how to enter into heaven, we shall leave everything unlike heaven behind us. Yep. While we continue our mistakes, we must of necessity... Oh, wait, there it is. We are punished by our mistakes. And if we keep making them, we're going to continue to be punished by them. So, the divine peace is not distributed by any hem of hate, nor is the majesty and might of the eternal presence disturbed by our thoughts of discord. There is another thought that Jesus gave us, which we should not overlook. He said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It is here and now. It is not something to wait for, something that is going to happen by and by. It is at hand. The question is, are we seeing it? Are we actually beholding it as he did in the here and now? The reason that Jesus forgave people their sins was that he recognized the fear and morbidity that had built up through the ages because people were afraid of God. They feared God rather than loved God. And so Jesus forgave them all these mistakes and told them to think the whole thing over again until they finally realized that God is love, God is life, God is peace, God is joy, God is givingness, God is forgiveness. But at the same time, he warned them that there is a law of life that reacts to the person in the way they use it. That's the important thing. And that while they refuse to forgive, they cannot be forgiven. And while they refuse to see in every person they meet the divine image they hope is within themselves, they cannot find the child of God at the center of their own being. Jesus taught justice without judgment. I think it's Richard Rohr. It could be Richard Rohr or Thomas Martin that said, it's our job to love people, not to decide whether they're worthy or not. Liberty without license, and showed that there is a perfect balance between our thoughts, our acts, and what is going to happen to us. It is upon this that we shall base all our beliefs and acts. Again, let us remember the story of the prodigal son who had lost in a far country everything he possessed. And when, sick and discouraged, he returned to his father's house, his father did not condemn him, but welcomed him with open arms. He did not even ask where he had been or what he had been doing, but said, "Let us rejoice together." How wonderful is this idea of being enfolded in the everlasting arms of peace and love on the very day we forsake our distrust, our hate, our fears, and doubts. How simple should be our salvation. All that it means is turning from wrong to right, from darkness to light, from fear to faith, from hate to love, from hell to heaven. How satisfying to know that no one can hinder us but ourselves. And except for the help of the great and the good God, no one can help us but ourselves. Meaning, we're the only ones that can get in our own way. And we are the only ones who can get ourselves out of our way. Doesn't mean that other people can't support, but, you know, you got to do your own work. Someday, as surely as we live, this is the God that will be presented to humanity. One universal divine presence, forevermore blessing its creation. One infinite ocean of love in which all are immersed. Our spirit, which art in heaven, the one and only God, who is not a God of wrath or retribution, but a God of peace and joy and wholeness. The day will come when the other God will be forgotten, and humanity will learn to live as though this earth were the kingdom of heaven, with God itself the host. All right, we got another one. We're going to be overcoming fear and the inferiority complex tomorrow. But that is it. And that was actually a way more hopeful article than I was expecting. So I did enjoy it to a degree. It's always dicey to talk about fear. It's always dicey to talk about hell. And honestly, I think that was one of the things, like, yeah, I was raised Catholic, loosely Catholic. So, you know, I was raised Christian, but one of the things that I could never buy into, I just couldn't, was the idea of hell. I could not buy a God that would create life and then condemn life to hell. And I know that God wasn't condemning us to hell. It's our own actions that are condemning us to hell. But that's why when Science of Mind said to me, well, heaven and hell are states of consciousness, I went, that makes far more sense. That makes far more sense. I just couldn't believe in a God that would condemn you to eternal damnation, to eternal punishment. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I still can't. I don't think I ever will. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So now I'm going to encourage you to have a great day, a wondrous day, a fantastic day, a magical day, an enchanted day, a wonderful day, an awesome day, an amazing day, a take care of business day, a you got this day, a let's start wrapping this week up day, a I don't know where the time has gone day, a enjoy the weather the rain if you get it day, a cuddle your fur babies day, a tell somebody you love them day, a look in your own eyes and see the divine looking back at you day, a practice forgiveness day starting with yourself today day, a drink plenty of water day, a stay out of the heat day, a stay out of direct sunlight between 10 and 2 day, a make sure you get your exercise day, a good day, and if that is too much pressure, because occasionally it is, simply have a day. You are enough, just as you are. You're a beloved expression of the divine. You are a brilliant light, a divine spark, spirit in motion, God in action, a beautiful masterpiece, and a work in progress at the same time, at your own pace. Very important part of that statement. And as Reverend Jesse likes to call us, you are a godling. All right? So explore the truth of your own being. Get to know who the divine knows you to be, because the divine knows you to be good, and from there, anything is possible. All right, beloveds. Reverend David should be on around 5 p.m. with you. I'll be back with you around 9. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.